last chapter basically. So it essentially means that this book will end very soon, and I'm happy because this book it's good. Okay, there's a lot of information, but like it's like information said with an expanded form. So like they talk about, let's say, a bottle of water, and then they talk about the materials within the bottle of water, and they talk about the science behind it and like the methodology and how they're made, and basically other stuff that you kind of like don't need because all the information is already said. That is important from the book. So yeah, they over-explain basically, but nonetheless, I shall read it to you because I think it will benefit both me, my speaking, and also your relaxation. So let's just start, shall we? And guys, I don't have a bookmark yet, so I'm gonna have to use this. Okay, so it's like a receipt for one of my books. But alright, let's go. Characteristics of pure consciousness. Our vision of consciousness is linked with our concept of self. The more limited the sense of self, the smaller is the parameter of experiencing. Restricted paradigms of reality are global in their effects. As an example, our studies of the so-called poor have made it evident that poorness is not just a financial condition, but that the really poor are poor in all areas of life. Poor in friendships, poor in verbal skills, poor in education, poor in social amenities, poor in resources, poor in health, and poor in overall level of happiness. Do you agree? Okay. Poorness then, poorness then can be seen as a quality characteristic of a limited self-image resulting in a paucity of resources. It is not a financial condition, but a level of consciousness. The energy of that level of awareness calibrates at about 60. So to give you a bit of an insight, what's his name? David R. Hawkins basically creates a map of consciousness where there's a lower end and there's a higher end. So the lower end is basically like anxiety, despair, depression, sadness, anger, pride. Those are all like 200 and below, basically like the very bare minimum, which correlates to the energy levels you kind of emit off of yourself. And if you go to the higher levels of energy levels, basically an energy level over 200, you would basically experience joy, happiness, what's this? Not ego, enlightenment, and you would have a sense of basically inner joy or inner peace, something that's based off power versus force. So, yeah, basically a map of consciousness, and 60 is on the low end, which means you're more on the sadder, more depressing end, which I hope you guys aren't. So, yeah. Alright, let's continue. Where was I? Oh, that's right. Page 727. Actually, no, page 272. Okay. The identification and therefore experience of self could be limited to an identification of oneself as merely one's physical body. Then, of course, we might well ask, how does one then know that one has a physical body? Through observation, we note that the presence of the physical body is registered by the senses. The question follows, what is it then that what is it then that is aware of the senses? A lot of tongue twisters. How do we experience what the senses are reporting? Something greater, something more encompassing than the physical body has to exist in order to experience that which is lesser. That something is mind itself. Try to digest that for a change. A person identifies with his body because his mind is experiencing the body. Okay. Patients who have lost sizable portions of their bodies report that their sense of self remains undiminished. Such a person will say, I'm still just as much me as I ever was. The question then arises, how does one know what is being experienced by the mind? By observation and introspection, one can witness that thoughts have no capacity to experience themselves, but that something both beyond and more basic than thought experiences the sequence of thoughts, and that is a sense of identity in unaltered. Wait, no, identity is unaltered by the content of the thoughts. Okay, what a interesting way of pronouncing words, but yeah. What is it that observes and is aware of all of the subjective and objective phenomena of life? It is consciousness itself that is both awareness and the source of experiencing. Both are purely subjective. Consciousness itself is not determined by content, yet content. Thoughts flowing through consciousness are like fish swimming in the ocean. The ocean's existence is independent of the fish. The content of the sea does not define the nature of the water. Like a colorless ray, consciousness illuminates the object witnessed. Thus, its traditional depiction throughout world literature is with light. Do you guys understand? I don't understand. Apparently it's like a self-help book. An Omega self-help book. So, yeah. Okay. Identification solely with the content of consciousness accounts for the experience of self as limited. In contrast, to identify with consciousness itself is to know that one's actual self is unlimited when circumscribed self-identifications have been surmounted so that the sense of self is identified as conscious itself. The condition is called enlightened. One characteristic of the experience of pure consciousness is a perception of timelessness or timelessness of perception. Consciousness is experienced as beyond all form and time, and seen as everywhere equally present, omnipresent. It is described as isness or beingness is, and in the spiritual literature, I amness. Okay, consciousness does not recognize separation, which is the consequence of a limitation of perception. The enlightened state is of a oneness in which there is no division into separate parts. Such division is only apparent from a localized perception. It is really only incidental to a fixed point of view. Similar descriptions throughout the history of thought are in accord with the studies of William James, as reported in the Gifford lectures and the famous book Varieties of Religious Experience. The experience of consciousness itself has been described as rare, unique, ineffable, and beyond mind, as a thought-free state of knowingness that is complete, all-inclusive, with neither need nor want, and beyond the limitation of experiencing a merely personalized individual self. Wow. Well, if you want to read it, it's called Power versus Force by David Hawkins. So, I did not understand almost anything, but what I learned from this is that apparently people who are poor aren't just poor financially, they're poor because of their ability to process things, or they are in the low spectrum of consciousness. So, yeah. If you were to name it or give it an example, people with high consciousness usually live in cities, and people with low consciousness typically are the people that live in like experiences